If you're collecting Social Security or about to turn 62, there's been serious talk in Washington about an extra payment coming your way in 2025. Now, before you start planning that vacation, let me walk you through what's actually happening, what's just political theater, and most importantly what you can realistically expect to see in your bank account. The stakes here aren't small. We're talking about potentially thousands of dollars for millions of Americans, but also about promises that might not materialize. So let's cut through the noise and get to the facts. Right now, about 67 million Americans receive Social Security benefits. That's roughly 1 in 5 people in this country. And here's the thing, many of these folks are struggling more than the official numbers suggest. The average Social Security payment is around $1,900 a month. Sounds decent until you realize that rent, groceries, and healthcare have been climbing faster than those annual cost of living adjustments we keep hearing about. So when politicians start floating ideas about bonus payments, people pay attention. Let's start with what's actually on the table. There are essentially 3 different types of bonus payments being discussed in Washington right now. This is the big one. Congressman John Larson from Connecticut has been pushing this for years, and it gained some momentum recently. The plan would provide what they're calling a benefit boost of about $200 per month for current and new beneficiaries. Now, they're not calling it a bonus payment, it's technically a permanent increase to your monthly Social Security check. But for someone getting that average $1,900 payment, an extra $200 would mean $2,400 in their pocket over a year. That's real money. The catch? This would be funded by raising the cap on Social Security taxes. Right now, you only pay Social Security taxes on the first $160,200 of your income. Under this plan, people making over $400,000 would start paying Social Security taxes again on income above that threshold. Then there's talk about direct stimulus-style payments specifically for seniors. Some members of Congress have floated amounts ranging from $14 to $2,000 as a one-time payment to help with inflation. The logic is straightforward: seniors on fixed incomes got hit hardest by the inflation of the past few years. While younger people could potentially switch jobs or find additional income, retirees don't have those options. Senator Bob Casey from Pennsylvania has been one of the loudest voices here. His proposal would send $1,400 to anyone receiving Social Security, similar to how the pandemic relief payments worked. The third category isn't exactly a bonus payment, but it would put money back in seniors' pockets. This involves reducing or eliminating Medicare Part B premiums for people below certain income levels. Medicare Part B currently costs most people about $175 per month. If you're getting $1,900 from Social Security and paying $175 for Medicare, that relief would effectively be like getting a $2,100 annual bonus. Here's where I need to be straight with you about the politics. None of these proposals are guaranteed to happen, and the path forward is complicated. First, the good news for supporters. Seniors vote. They vote in higher percentages than any other age group, and politicians know this. In 2022, people over 65 made up 30% of all voters despite being only 17% of the population. Both parties also recognize that Social Security is what political scientists call a third rail: touch it wrong and you get electrocuted politically. So proposals that increase benefits tend to be safer than proposals that cut them. The economic argument is also getting stronger. The Congressional Budget Office recently noted that seniors' purchasing power has declined more than other groups since 2020, despite the cost of living adjustments. But here's the reality check. Any significant new spending faces headwinds in Congress, especially with concerns about the deficit. The Social Security Trustees report shows the trust fund running low by 2034, which makes some lawmakers nervous about expanding benefits now. The tax increases needed to fund these programs also face resistance. While polling shows support for making wealthy Americans pay more in Social Security taxes, translating popular ideas into actual legislation is always harder than it looks. And there's a practical issue. Even if Congress wanted to act quickly, the Social Security Administration would need months to implement any new payment system. They're still catching up on customer service backlogs from the pandemic. Let me break down what these proposals would actually cost and who would benefit. The Social Security 2100 Act would affect all 67 million Social Security recipients. At $200 per person per month, that's about $160 billion per year in additional spending. To put that in perspective, that's roughly what we spend on the entire State Department, including all foreign aid. The proposed tax increases would generate an estimated $200 billion annually, so the math works on paper. But that assumes economic growth continues at current rates and that wealthy Americans don't find ways to restructure their income to avoid the higher taxes. One-time payments would be cheaper up front but politically harder to limit. If you send $1,400 to every Social Security recipient, that's about $94 billion. That's significant but not astronomical. It's less than we spent on the child tax credit expansion in 2021. The challenge is that once you send one payment, the pressure builds for more. We saw this during the pandemic, where the first relief payment led to demands for second and third payments. Medicare premium relief is actually the most targeted approach. About 15 million Medicare recipients pay the full Part B premium. Eliminating it for people making under $50,000 would cost roughly $25 billion annually but would be the most direct way to help seniors who are actually struggling financially. I want to share some healthy skepticism here, because I think it's warranted. First, timing matters, and the timing here feels suspicious. We're coming up on midterm elections in 2026, and promising money to the most reliable voting bloc in America is good politics regardless of whether it's good policy. Second, there's a difference between what politicians propose and what actually happens. We've seen variations of these ideas floated for years. The Social Security 2100 Act has been introduced in multiple versions since 2019. If it was going to pass, wouldn't it have happened already? Third, the funding mechanisms all depend on economic assumptions that might not hold up. The tax increases on high earners assume those earners won't change their behavior. The one-time payments assume we won't need the money for other priorities. The Medicare premium relief assumes healthcare costs won't spike unexpectedly. I'm not saying these proposals are bad ideas. I'm saying that in my experience watching Washington, the gap between campaign promises and actual legislation is often wider than supporters want to admit. Based on the political dynamics and past precedent, here's my read on what's actually likely to occur. Most likely, small, targeted relief. The most realistic scenario is some form of targeted relief that doesn't require major tax increases or structural changes. This might be a one-time payment of $500 to $1,000 for Social Security recipients, funded through existing programs or small adjustments to current tax policy. This approach has several advantages for politicians. It's big enough to make headlines and help constituents, but small enough to avoid major fiscal concerns. It can be packaged with other popular provisions to build broader support. The Medicare premium relief has a better chance than the broader Social Security increases because it's more targeted and less expensive. Helping seniors who are struggling with healthcare costs is something both parties can support in principle. The challenge is defining who qualifies. Do you base it on income, assets, or current benefit levels? Each approach creates different winners and losers, which complicates the politics. The $200 monthly increase in the Social Security 2100 Act is the least likely to pass in its current form. The tax increases required are significant, and there's too much opposition from business groups and higher-income voters. That said, a smaller version, maybe $50 or $75 per month, could be part of a broader compromise package. Politicians love to say they're helping seniors, even if the help is more modest than originally promised. If any of these proposals are going to move, here's when it's most likely to happen. The window for action is probably between now and early 2026. After that, we get into the midterm election season, and controversial legislation becomes harder to pass. For one-time payments, The process could be relatively quick, maybe 3 to 6 months from proposal to implementation, assuming there's political will. The Social Security Administration has experience with this from the pandemic relief payments. For ongoing changes to Social Security or Medicare, expect a longer timeline. Even if Congress passes something in 2025, implementation would likely start in 2026 at the earliest. These systems are complex, and rushing changes often creates problems. Here's my practical advice for anyone affected by these potential changes. I know it's tempting to factor potential payments into your financial planning, but don't. Political promises change, and even well-intentioned proposals can get watered down or delayed. Follow the news on these proposals, but don't let it dominate your thinking. Your financial security shouldn't depend on what politicians might do. If you're eligible for benefits you're not claiming, claim them. If you're paying for Medicare coverage you don't need, review your options during open enrollment. If you're not getting cost of living adjustments you're entitled to, make sure Social Security has your current information. If you do receive a bonus payment, understand how it might affect your taxes. One-time payments might be taxable income, which could push you into a higher bracket or affect your Medicare premiums the following year. These bonus payment proposals are really about a larger question: how do we support an aging population in an economy where traditional retirement security is eroding? Social Security was designed when most people worked for one employer their entire career and died within a few years of retirement. Today's reality is different. People change jobs frequently, traditional pensions are disappearing, and many Americans are living 20 or 30 years after retirement. The bonus payment debate is a symptom of this broader challenge. We're trying to use a 1930s program to solve 2020s problems, and it's not a perfect fit. Other countries have approached this differently. Some have universal basic income for seniors. Others have made their public pension systems more generous from the start. Still others have focused on reducing the cost of healthcare and housing for older adults. I'm not advocating for any particular approach, but I think it's worth recognizing that bonus payments, while helpful, are probably not a complete solution to the retirement security challenges facing America. So, will seniors receive a bonus payment in 2025? My prediction is yes, but probably not as much as the headlines suggest. I think we'll see some form of targeted relief, maybe a one-time payment of $800 to $12 for Social Security recipients, possibly combined with some Medicare premium relief for lower-income seniors. This gives politicians something to campaign on without requiring major structural changes or tax increases. The bigger Social Security expansion ideas will continue to be discussed, but I don't expect them to pass in their current form. Instead, they'll serve as negotiating positions for smaller, more incremental changes. For seniors watching this, the key takeaway is this: political promises are just that, promises. Plan your finances based on what you know you'll receive, not what politicians say you might receive. That said, there is genuine momentum behind helping seniors deal with inflation and rising costs. The question isn't whether Washington will do something, but how much and when. Keep watching the news, keep advocating for policies you believe in, but don't let the uncertainty paralyze your financial planning. The most important bonus you can give yourself is staying informed and making smart decisions with the money you already have. What do you think? Are you optimistic about these proposals, or skeptical like me? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe if you want to stay updated on how these political promises translate into actual policy.